Welcome to another Seidokan Saturday. So today we want to address the concept of stability and mobility. Stability and mobility are at opposite ends of the teeter-totter. The more mobile I am, the less stable I am. The more stable I am, the less mobile I am. The most stable position you can be in is flat on the ground. If you're already flat on the ground, nobody can knock you over. That's pretty stable. If I'm very mobile, yes, I can move around a lot, but I can also be knocked over more easily, okay, if they can catch me. And this is what we need to address with stability versus mobility, is fighting versus self-defense. Again, they are at opposite, well, not completely opposite, they're more related, but they have opposite sort of concepts or utility when we talk about mobility versus stability, utility. That's a lot of ility. So when I'm fighting, I need to move around a lot. But if I can move around a lot, I can move out of dodge. I shouldn't be there. If I have that much room to move, I shouldn't be there. On the other hand, if I'm defending myself, somebody's attacked me, I want to keep from getting knocked over. I want to lower my center of gravity. This is where wrestlers operate, okay? I want to drop my weight and brace myself, root into the ground in order to not be thrown over. So self-defense operates close, requires me to not get knocked over if possible. Fighting requires me to keep my distance. We have the long-range techniques and has a whole lot more movement potential. So there are two different kinds of footwork, two different kinds of thinking and mentality. So on the stability end, what we covered last week, moving into the stances in our different positions. Now, being stable does not completely eliminate mobility, but it does restrict it. Here's where one of the beauties of the square stance in Seidokan operates. We start, say my opponent is coming from this direction, and he's coming in at me. If I just stay upright or start moving, I should either run away, or if he catches me and I'm doing that, I'm going to get knocked over, right? It's the cheetah chasing the deer, takes out the back leg. That's how the cheetah wins, or the lion, or whatever cat predator you want to picture. So rather than, when someone attacks me, getting up high, as if I'm going to fight, I want to get low so that I can't get knocked over. And that creates my defensive base. I always want to create a base. Okay? When I coached wrestling, one of the things that we would always teach our wrestlers if they were taken down is to base up, which meant get on all fours. It's a compromise between being all the way flat on the floor, which is not where a wrestler wants to be, and being in a position where he's ready to move, based up. He's on all fours. Now he can sit out, he can roll, he can do a whole bunch of other defensive maneuvers. Same thing with karate. I want to base up. So in Seidokan, when the attack comes and I drop back into my square stance, I'm going to affect my block of choice. But from here, I'm also going to be mobile-ish, but I don't need to move a lot. I can employ a variety of different kinds of footwork, which we'll cover next week. But the most basic in Seidokan is simply to rotate that back, generate power from the hip, rotate that back leg forward as I drive my hip in, and from there, we punch. So we take our stance in order to not get knocked over, whatever block we want to affect, and then we pivot in using our hip power driving forward. This applies to all of the stance movements that we did last week, all of the defensive position practice. So to review those, we went square stance in 4 directions. We went horse stance in 4 directions. And then we went front stance in 6 directions. Pardon me. Each of those movements takes me from a natural or unprepared posture. The attack comes and I brace. I put myself into a defensive position. From here, we can make minor movements and do my counterattack, pivot into throws, etc. Next week, we'll talk about footwork and sabaki. So how do we move out of those stable positions into our defensive technique? But for today, understand, and when you're doing any kind of self-defense movement, consider, are you fighting or are you defending yourself? Are you completely stable or are you completely mobile, or are you somewhere in between on that continuum? Look at each of your techniques and analyze them based on that. Look at your kata as you practice, okay? And then we'll talk, as I said, next week about footwork and sabaki as it relates to our stances in a stable self-defense position. Thanks for joining another Seidokan Saturday. Keep practicing.